penalty specialist, yeah? A penalty specialist. You know, I am so anti this trendy new bringing on a penalty specialist for a penalty shootout. I don't think it works. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's incredibly harsh on both goalkeepers. I think both goalkeepers are treated so poorly here. Mendy has had a complete blinder, been sensational. Chelsea's man of the match, and you're taking him off, and you're bringing Arrizabalaga on and expecting him to win you the cup. It's so harsh, and I don't care about the stats. The stats only tell part of the story, and this is my issue with stats. You know who stats are for, and this is a really good example. Stats are for mugs. The stats will tell you that Arrizabalaga is the person to bring on, but it doesn't take into account the occasion. It doesn't take into account the fact that the magnificence of Wembley, the noise, everything else going on the day. The fact that Mendy is in the form of his life. Mendy was fantastic. He's kept Liverpool at bay for 120 minutes. And look, you can tell me that excluding shootouts, Kepa Arrizabalaga has saved 7 of 24, whereas Edouard Mendy has kept out 2 of 32. But the point is, he didn't save any of 11. So what's the point in that stat? Doesn't tell us anything really, does it? Hindsight has taught us that that immediate stat and that initial stat is actually meaningless. That stat doesn't tell us anything because he didn't save any of 11. And I think Thomas Tuchel needs to be pragmatic. Even if it looked like a good idea pre-kickoff, even if pre-kickoff it felt like it was a good idea to sub on Arrizabalaga. It wasn't at the time. It wasn't, because Edouard Mendy was playing in a sensational, dazzling way. He was our man of the match. Nothing could beat him. He felt impenetrable. He had that aura about him on the day. And Kepa Arrizabalaga is coming on to a ground where he's had a very, very bad experience. The penalties were taken at the Liverpool end. It was throwing him in. It was a baptism of fire and massively throwing him in the deep end. Whereas Mendy was acclimatised already. He was set. He was ready. He was feeling good. He was playing well. And I just don't think it was the right decision. I understand why it happened because it's data driven, but I think data can only educate us so far. I'm not on board with it at all. I'm really not. Can you imagine when Chelsea played in Munich, if Chelsea had, for some reason, decided to sub off Petr Cech and bring on Ross Turnbull, because up until that point, Petr Cech didn't have a particularly good penalty record. Petr Cech wasn't particularly good at saving penalties. His penalty record over his career isn't exceptional at all. It's not exemplary at all. So can you imagine if Roberto Di Matteo and Eddie Newton had had a conversation and gone, do you know what? I reckon that Ross Turnbull's data is better at saving penalties than Petr Cech's data. And that could actually be true. I'm not looking it up because I don't care. But that could actually be true. Can you imagine? It just doesn't make sense to me. Penalties, it's about the moment. It's about the moment, the noise, the atmosphere, the composure. Who are you? Are you present? Are you ready? That is what a penalty shootout is. It isn't an Excel spreadsheet. It isn't a graph. Edouard Mendy was ready. Yes, his previous record wasn't particularly impressive. But who cares? Because Arrizabalaга's record was particularly impressive and he was terrible. He got it so wrong, and I'm not blaming Arrizabalaga here, by the way. I'm not blaming anybody. I think it was a wrong decision, but these things happen, and it's a penalty shootout, and it's a toss of a coin. We've played against a sensational team, and because of Thomas Tuchel's brilliance, we went into the game, and over 120 minutes were on a level footing. In my opinion, we actually deserved to win. That's, I think we had clearer chances. If Pulisic wasn't rubbish, if Mason Mount had taken that chance, if Lukaku's goal had stood, it would have been a very different story. So the fact that Thomas Tuchel got Chelsea into that sort of situation is massive. It's massive. And I am not blaming Thomas Tuchel for this at all, but I think this decision was wrong. Kepa Arrizabalaga came on with the intention of upsetting Liverpool, confusing Liverpool, harassing them, making them doubt themselves. But the only thing that actually happened is Arrizabalaga doubted himself. Liverpool looked assured. Liverpool looked strong. Arrizabalaga got it wrong every single time he went to war. He declared war on certain individuals and every time lost. He did it to Fabinho, and this was the moment, actually. This could have actually been the moment that Liverpool won the penalty shootout. He declared war on Fabinho, making the early eye contact, doing the whole staring him down. You can't do that, man. You're Joe Hart when you do that. Giving him the eyes, looking at him, staring at him really trying to get into his head. Bang, bang, bang. You've been Panenka, you mug. Like, come on. Like, what are you doing? That didn't faze him. Then Van Dijk, he goes and stands on one particular side of the net. Maybe expecting Van Dijk to doubt himself. Maybe expecting Van Dijk to go for the opposite side. One huge, gaping part of the net. One fairly well protected part of the net. Van Dijk blazes it into the fairly well protected part of the net, past the part of the net that was being protected by Arrizabalaga. It's just defiance. It was such a shame, and I'm so gutted about this. Again, Harvey Elliott. Harvey Elliott was then targeted by Arrizabalaga. You could see he caught his eye, and I think that Harvey Elliott, I think a brilliant player, by the way, real edge to his game, which I rate, and I think that he is just such a good footballer. I think if he was playing for any other club, maybe in the whole league, even City, I think he'd be playing as one of the front three. It's just Liverpool are so good in that position, so well stocked in that position, that he has to play in a slightly different position. But any other club, he's playing as one of the front three. Dazzling footballer, truly, truly brilliant talent. But he's effectively a child. He wasn't expecting to play. You know, he was only drafted in because of the Thiago Alcantara injury in the warm-up. And I think Arrizabalaga saw a chink in the armour. I think he thought, okay, there is an opportunity here. Starts pointing to his right, doesn't he? Starts pointing across, telling Elliott where he is going to put it. Telling him, I know where you're going to put it. You're going to put it to my right. And he did. And he still scored. He actually put it where you said he was going to put it, but you didn't save it. And then obviously the one that actually typified the entire experiment was the Konate one, because that was savable. The Konate one, which I think was 10th, you know that Ibrahima Konate does not want to take a penalty. Whoever's 10th doesn't want to take one. And it wasn't a particularly good penalty. He was sort of very static. He stood with his hands on his hips. I was with Adam McCullough on the kickoff. He made me laugh. So it stood with his hands on his hips and then went from 0 to 100 miles an hour and bang, took the penalty. And it wasn't a great penalty. It was the one that Arrizabalaga could have probably saved. It was there for him. It was a savable penalty. And he got to it. But he parried it into the net rather than out to safety. And if he keeps that out, Trevor Chalobah today is a hero. Today is a hero. Instead, Chalobah does what we hoped he would do. And then Arrizabalaga gifts the match ball to someone who's got a season ticket on the Kop. He just blazed it over. He'd taken a goal kick. It was an unbelievable penalty. It's still moving now. If I look out my window now, I'll see it going. Such a shame. But I'm not holding anyone really accountable here. Arrizabalaga obviously didn't cover himself in glory, but how can we expect him to? We've thrown him in the deep end. Mendy should have stayed on, I'm sure, and I'm not holding Thomas Tuchel accountable here. I think Thomas Tuchel is truly world class. I adore the man, and he is the reason that Chelsea could compete with Liverpool, and arguably at least deserve the game in 120 minutes. Just a shame, but this, I just find it so modern. This bringing on a goalkeeping specialist. Mendy's having the game of his life. Trust him. He's a wicked goalie. What do you think? Do you think that it was right to trust the data and bring on Arrizabalaga? Or should we have backed Mendy? I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give me the honour of dropping a like on it. It massively helps me out. And if you would be kind enough to click subscribe, I will be over the moon. Thank you so much for watching this video. See you in a bit.